Okay, welcome to Mr. Clayton's first Year 9 Geography video lesson. Today we are going to be learning about Australia and its location in the world. We're going to start by looking at Australia's latitude and longitude. In front of you here you'll see that we have a map of Australia. Including Tasmania way down the bottom of the map where the cursor is down here. And I'd point out to you that at the very bottom you can see we have the latitude, and you can see here we've got 25 degrees 8 minutes and 52 seconds south of the equator, and 133 degrees 52 minutes 28 seconds east of the prime meridian line of longitude. Now, I'm just going to drag us up here. Now notice when my cursor moves that the latitude and longitude are changing. You can see that down the bottom here. So firstly I'm going to take my hand, you'll see on the screen, all the way up to the 0 line. I'm going to have to pull the map down. As I go further north you can see we get to 0. We've got to be careful here. So our 0 line, our equator, is about where the hand is right now, so about there. Now what I'm going to do is just draw a line across to show exactly about here where we're looking at. It makes an arc because the world is round and finishes around about here on our map. So that's the 0 line, that's equator. Everything south of this line we consider to be the southern hemisphere. Everything north on the northern side we consider to be in the northern hemisphere. And lines of latitude stretch to the south. Okay. Now I'm going to draw another line in, but I want to put it in at 10 degrees south. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here until I get to 10 degrees south, which we can see down here. So 10 degrees, we're at 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 degrees south. I'm going to draw another line. Okay, at 10 degrees south. Okay. Now that line's in place, you can begin to see that in terms of Australia's northern boundary, it begins at 10 degrees south. Okay. I can scroll this up now. Move the map up, and if we look at our southern border in the south here, we can see that again we're at 43. If we look at this area down here, southern Tasmania is at 43 degrees. Right. So if I go across here and make sure I go to 43 degrees, scrolling down, oopsie, 43, 44 degrees, that will do. And you can see that that doesn't work at all. So that theory doesn't work. It's just using the program, I'm not so good at it, but nevertheless it's fair to say that the southern end of Tasmania here sits at 44 degrees south of the equator. So our area we're interested in is from this 10 degrees line down to Tasmania down here at 44 degrees. And they're the boundaries of latitude that Australia sits within. On the other hand, if we do the same thing from the right side to the left, you can see that if I draw a line down here, Australia's eastern border, we're now looking at this figure in here, which is degrees east. You can see that we sit at around about 153 degrees east on our eastern coastline, and on the other side, if we do the same thing, you can see that we sit at around 113 degrees east of the prime meridian. So they are the latitudinal and longitudinal boundaries for Australia. And that's okay. Moving on to the next part of the worksheet, we should know that Australia is the largest island in the world, with a land area of just 7.682 million square kilometres. So it's a very large island. The world's flattest continent or island is also a fact for Australia. And the highest place in Australia is Mount Kosciuszko, down here where the cursor is. If I zoom in, you can begin to see where the area that I'm talking about. I'll just close this here and keep zooming in. And Mount Kosciuszko is basically right in here. So I'll zoom back out. We might put a place marker there to note where it is. So it's down here, roughly. Okay. Mount Kosciuszko. What else have we got here? Its highest point is, in fact, the height of Mount Kosciuszko is approximately 2,228 metres in height. We should also know that Australia is the world's second driest continent after Antarctica. Even though Antarctica has a lot of ice on it, there's not a lot of precipitation, snow, rain, etc. that falls in Antarctica. So that should help us identify some of the unique characteristics of Australia. Now you're asked to use an atlas to name Australia's most northern point. Now, you can by all means go away and do some research or get an atlas, but our most northern point is here in Cape York. Specifically, it's called Cape York Peninsula, but you can just simply write down Cape York. That's up here in the northern tip of Australia. The most southern area that can be found in Australia is actually in Tasmania. And you can see, zoom right in to this area here. This is known as the Southeast Cape. So we can write that in. Australia's most eastern point. Alright, let's zoom out and we'll scroll back towards the middle of Australia. If we're going to look at this map, probably looking at somewhere in here, most eastern point, and in that area you're going to find a place by the name of Cape Byron, which is located at Byron Bay, down right about there where that hand is. Okay. It's on this map here, it looks like this area up here is a bit further east, but that's only because the map is slightly twisted around. So, Cape Byron is the most eastern point of Australia, whilst the most western point is located at a place called Steep Point, and that can be found right there. Okay. Now, we can't name this bit of island here because it's not part of the mainland, but yeah, East Point. Okay. Alright. Australia's highest mountain is Mount Kosciuszko. That's spelt Kosciuszko. Mount Kosciuszko is our highest mountain. I showed you where that was earlier. The system in Australia is called the Murray-Darling Basin. Now the Murray-Darling Basin has rivers that start up in the mountains here, and you can actually, if you look carefully at this map, you can see the river coming downstream all the way through this dry country, down through here, gets across to here and then does a southerly turn, makes its way down into these lakes and flows out to sea. Now that's the Murray. The Darling starts way up here, makes its way down and joins up to the Murray at a place called Mildura in Victoria. So it's our largest river system. Basically, this whole area in here, if it rains, actually it goes further north, if it rains, all that water ends up in that river system. So you can see that it covers a very large area. Okay? And I'm just going to pause the video for a moment, just while Okay, now we'll look at some information about Australia's climate. So let's zoom out. Okay, now Darwin is located right there. Okay, I'll zoom in. More or less there. I might be out a few Ks, but that's it. Pretty much. Alright. Now, firstly, a couple of things. Darwin is warm all year round, and that's because it's close to the equator. I mentioned earlier that the equator was just up here. Okay? That's the equator. So the nearer you are to the equator, more chance that it's going to be warm all year round. The reason why that's the case is that the sun is directly overhead throughout the whole year. The further south you go and the further north you go away from the equator, the more ranging number of hours of daylight you get. Whereas near the equator, it's basically the same amount of daylight hours and therefore the same temperature during the day. Between December and March, Darwin experiences heavy rainfall due to what we call the monsoon. Now, what is the monsoon? Okay, so I'm going to get my ruler again. So I'm going to shift that out the way. So if this is the equator, across here, then we find that we have what's called a low air pressure system that generally, I'm just going to draw that in, get this out the way, just going to draw that in. So up in here, all the way around the Earth, we tend to get low air pressure systems. But sometimes what will happen is the low air pressure system, I'm just going to try and draw a little L in here for low, okay, in there. That low air pressure band will actually move, in the summer months, will move down in this area here. And when you have low air pressure systems, you get rain associated with them. And this band will hang around pretty much through all of summer. And so what happens is that this band that was up here of low air pressure moves down over the northern part of Australia, and during those months from basically December through to around March, April, this part of Australia gets heavy rainfall. We call it the monsoon. When the Earth tilts, that band then moves back up to the north, and Australia, that part of Australia will end up getting very dry conditions for the remainder of the year. So whilst in the south we have 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, autumn, in the north they have 2 seasons. They have a wet season followed by a dry season. Okay, so I hope that explains that question from the book, from the worksheet. The temperature drops as you climb Mount Kosciuszko, and the reason why that's the case is because, I'll just zoom here, zoom in, try and get a bit of an eye on where Kosciuszko is. Okay. Kosciuszko is around about in here, at 2,200 metres. Now for every 1,000 metres we go above sea level, the temperature drops by 6 degrees. That's a pretty standard rate of decline in temperature. Now, that means that for Mount Kosciuszko, which sits at 2,200 metres above sea level, that would mean that it's just over 12 degrees cooler in the mountains than it would be down at sea level down here. So that explains why Mount Kosciuszko is cooler in temperatures. Alice Springs has low rainfall for a variety of reasons. One of the main ones, though, is, and I'm just going to zoom out again. Okay. Pull Australia. So Alice Springs is located right about there. Okay. Just hit OK there. We'll zoom in. Actually, won't zoom in. Leave that right there. Okay, so one of the reasons that Alice Springs is so dry is that Alice Springs is a long way from a major water body, like an ocean. Notice that out here we have an ocean surrounding Australia. Well, the nearer the land mass is to that ocean, the higher the rainfall. Alice Springs is a long way inland. If we get a ruler and measure the distance, you can see that from this coastline, it is 1,876 kilometres. That's a long way for the moisture coming off the ocean to travel before it gets to Alice Springs. It's dumped all of its rain before it gets there. In this direction, you can see the distance is 899 kilometres. From the east coast, distance is 1,985 kilometres. From the Great Australian Bight, distance is 833 kilometres. So you get the idea. Alice Springs is a long way from major water bodies, and that is exactly why it is dry. It's just simply too far away from clouds. Okay, moving on. Sydney has a warmer temperature on average than Hobart. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. Well, firstly, what do they have in common? Let's move this over here, we'll zoom in. Okay, Sydney is located somewhere up in here, and Hobart's located where that purple dot is. What does it say there? Big belly. Never mind. Alright. Okay, the main reason that Hobart is much cooler than Sydney is because if we look at its latitude, remembering that of course we said the latitude was down here, it's at 43 degrees south, whereas Sydney sits at around 33 degrees south. So therefore it receives more heat from the sun up in this latitude compared to the latitude down here at Tasmania. Okay. The energy coming from the sun hitting the earth down here is less than the energy up here, and so this area will be warmer. In fact, it's a trend. Okay, from south, at the further north you go, the warmer the temperatures get, and that occurs all the way along the East Australian coastline. On the other hand, you can look at our last part there. Perth has hot, dry summers. Well, let's look at that because that's really interesting. So you've got Sydney over here, which generally is warm and wet, and you've got Perth over here. Now, you will note that they do sit at approximately the same latitude. Okay? We're both at around 33 degrees, thereabouts. But Perth has much hotter temperatures in summer than Sydney does in summer. Now, the reason why the temperature in Perth in summer is so hot is because, for the same reason that the low air pressure systems up here moved south, well, so do the high air pressure systems. They also move further south. And what that does is that it directs warm air down along this sort of path. Okay, from the desert where it's hot already down over Perth. And that's the reason why Perth is hotter than Sydney. Okay. The other thing too is that what that causes is a general movement of air to move in this direction across Australia. So meanwhile, Sydney's getting moist air crossing the coast. Sydney gets dumped on. By the time air gets across here, it's travelled a long way over land and it's dried out. It hasn't evaporated any more water out of an ocean. So that's partly why that's the case. Let's move on to question number 4. Okay, so the Western Plateau makes up an area, and I'll just draw it in here. Essentially, the Western Plateau is the largest of the plateaued areas. It makes this shape around Australia. This is not entirely accurate, but it's about right. Okay, the Western Plateau is in that area there. The Eastern Plateau, sorry, I'm going to have to start that again, I think. And so the Central Plateau is in this area here. It includes Alice Springs. Alright. And the Eastern Plateau is over in this area. It's on the western side of the Great Dividing Range. And it's a slightly different shape. And it makes a shape about like that. Okay? The Eastern Plateau. Okay, next up is we're going to match the following landform examples with the correct type of landform feature. Okay, let's have a look at that one then. In terms of geographic features in Australia, Foal Mountains are strongly associated with the Eastern Highlands. That's this area over here. Okay. Block mountains are common where the Flinders Ranges occur, and they occur down in this area, probably around about here. In fact, that dark grey area there might be the Flinders Mountains, or not. It's difficult to tell. But they are in this location somewhere here. So that was for Block Mountains. Volcano. There are very few volcanoes in Australia. One of the volcanoes that's common is in Mount Gambier, which can be found, just looking at this map, somewhere in here. Mount Gambier. Okay. Dissected plateau, a good example of that would be up in the Kimberleys. Now the Kimberleys are found way up in the northwestern area, where this really rugged and jutted sort of coastline occurs. That's the Kimberleys in there. And what else do we have? We have granite boulders. The Devil's Marbles is a place where they occur, and I'm not exactly sure where the Devil's Marbles are, but I believe they are around Alice Springs somewhere. You guys might know that. Limestone Plain, we have the Nullarbor. That's this area along here. This expanse of desert, basically, or semi-arid desert. In here is known as the Nullarbor, made of limestone. Very nice caves that go many kilometres underground underneath here. So that's limestone. Sandstone monolith, an example of that would be where Uluru is, back up here where Alice Springs is. And the last one, sedimentary plateau, an example of that would be the Carnarvon Gorge. And again, I'm not quite sure where that is, the Carnarvon Gorge. Must be near Carnarvon, wherever that is. Okay, now we're going to look at question number 5, where we have to name the places. Now, I'm sure some of these you could do on your own, and by all means, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to help you with some of these that you might find a bit tougher. So the first one, a 260 metre long reef. Well, this is actually a place called Ningaloo, and I'm going to show you where that is. And it's over here where the cursor is, and I'm going to zoom in and just give you a bit of an idea as to where Ningaloo Reef is. Alright, so Ningaloo Reef basically works its way along the coast here. These are all coral reefs that make their way up the coast. It's famous because it's got many different species. In fact, it's got over 500 species of fish and over 200 species of coral. And it's one of the larger coral reefs that is found in Australia, well actually, sorry, in the world. But more specifically, it's the largest reef that's a type of reef called a fringing reef. And that is a reef that's connected to a continent, or a part of the continent. You can just see how long this is, all the way down through here. Beautiful area. So that's Ningaloo Reef. The next one, we'll look at some clues here. 110 kilometres south of Adelaide. Just zoom out. Right, so Adelaide's down here. If we just scroll in here. Right, so here's Adelaide in this area here where the airport is. So if we go 110 kilometres southwest of Adelaide, we get our ruler. We'll find out how far 110 k's is. So 15, 20. Right, there's 110. Southwest. Did it say southwest? Boom, and you get to this area here. Now this area, this island, is called Kangaroo Island. Okay, Kangaroo Island attracts many people. It's popular with tourists. There's not actually that many kangaroos on the island. I don't know why they called it Kangaroo Island, but nevertheless they did. So that's that one there, the Kangaroo Island. We'll move on to C, the world's largest sand island. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of our map here. We'll move up coast to a beautiful part of the world. Some of you will have been here, and here it is. This island in here is called Fraser Island. To get to Fraser Island, you need to have a four-wheel drive, or you can fly in. Generally what you do to get there, just going to move down here. There's highways through here, but there's tracks that get in through here. I'm not talking about these ones, but you've got to get in through here and make your way all the way up this peninsula. You can zoom right in, and you can see where the road is. You get a ferry right here. The ferry goes round the corner and across the little inlet and drops you off right about here. From there, four-wheel drive, and away you go. If you don't have a four-wheel drive, you can't go to Fraser Island. They don't have sealed roads. But that's Fraser Island. You can see the little sand dunes in here, splotches. The sand is made up fully of sand, there is nothing else, and vegetation of course, but no rock. It's 125 kilometres long, it's over 160,000 hectares in area. It was formed during the Ice Age when the prevailing winds transported vast quantities of sand from New South Wales, which is a long way away, and deposited it along the coast of Queensland. So that's Fraser Island. Next is I run 300 kilometres east and west of Alice Springs, the second longest and highest mountain range in Australia, and characterised by red sandstone gorges and waterholes lined with beautiful river red gums and ghost gums. So we'll go to Alice Springs. Somewhere in here anyway. You can get a bit of an idea about the type of land here, but it's certainly not quality sort of land area. Now, the range is called the McDonald Range. Okay, and it's quite long. It's not very high, but it's certainly significant when you compare it to our biggest mountain range known as the Great Dividing Range, so McDonald Ranges, which is sort of in this area here. The next one that we're going to look at is E, and it's believed to have formed, wow, 2,700 million years ago. 14 metres high and 110 metres long, and I look like I am just about to break. Well, boys and girls, that's wave rock. And we'll scroll out here so we know where we're going. Right, wave rock is in this area down here somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but I know that it's somewhere in this area down here. Okay. Google it, look it up. There's pictures of it, and it does. It's a rock. It looks like it's about to break, like a wave does. Very unique feature. Okay, F. Located 987 kilometres west of Sydney. I am one of 17 dry lakes which constitute the Willandra Lakes World Heritage Area. I dried up around about 14,000 years ago, and I am now a rich source of fossils. You may have heard of Lake Mungo. And Lake Mungo is just one of the lakes that makes up the Willandra Lakes. Now, these can be difficult to find. You remember earlier in the video I pointed out that the Darling River joins up with the Murray River. Okay, and the Willandra Lake system, at least as far as I know, is right here. Okay. See these little areas in here? These used to be lakes, Willandra Lakes. Okay, there's an airport there. You can see that what would have happened years ago, water would have filled in the lakes up here, and slowly, as the water moved along, filled up lake after lake after lake after lake after lake. And no doubt it would have filled into a river, probably came down here and joined up into the Murray River. You can see in this area in here. It's a significant Aboriginal site. It has a lot of history behind it for Aboriginal people. Okay, next up is G. I am 135 million year old rainforest located in tropical far north Queensland. I was placed on the World Heritage List in 1988, and I am the Daintree Rainforest. We'll scroll out again and we'll go up to the Daintree Rainforest. Okay. What was the distance in here? No, there was no distance. Okay, so this is the Daintree Rainforest up here. Okay. Zoom right in. Get a bit of an idea. What's this? Here we go. Daintree Airport. And you can see here, it's famous because it's one of the few places in Australia where rainforest meets tropical oceans or tropical coral reefs. And this area here is what we're talking about. This is the Daintree Rainforest. Let's have a look at this picture. Give it a moment to load. Not the best picture, but nevertheless. Very difficult to get to. If we look at, apart from flying in, of course, this here is Cairns, and so here's Cairns, and it's a fair wave. Alright, let's get a distance from Cairns to the Daintree. Use our ruler again, as the crow flies, of course. So 79 kilometres to get to the Daintree Rainforest. So it's a fair way. You can drive there. You can drive there, I think, in a two-wheel drive car, but you wouldn't be able to go much further. It requires a four-wheel drive the further north you go. So that's the Daintree Rainforest. Last one. I am 1,545 metres tall. Wow. 1,545 metres. And one of the most popular tourist destinations in Tasmania. Okay. We'll go down and we'll have a look at Tasmania and we'll check out what the possibility is. It is a place well known to many Australians. Here's Tasmania, scrolling in, and we're going to go to a place called Cradle Mountain. Now Cradle Mountain can be found somewhere in here. Cradle Mountain, Lake Sinclair National Park. Okay, so if you get the chance to go there, you should. Its height is 1,545 metres tall, and it's one of the few places in Tassie that gets lots of snow, right up high, national park, sensational bushwalking right throughout this whole area. You can actually walk from Cradle Mountain, which is basically in here, and this is Lake Sinclair. You do bushwalks all the way across here, along the lake, and there's a road that goes through here somewhere where you can end the walk. I think it takes about 4 days. Really good bushwalk in Tasmania. Okay, now look at the last part of the worksheet. And I think at the end of the day I'm going to actually let you work on this one on your own, because I don't think I need to be assisting you with this. And that is, you've got to label the following statements true or false. Rewrite the incorrect statements correctly. You'll need to use an atlas for this, or you could use Google Maps and either. So you have to write true or false and then write the correct statement on the right hand side. Alright, I'll leave that with you. That's today's lesson complete. I certainly hope that you found this useful and you've learnt a little bit more about our country. And yeah.